Hi everybody, I'm Carrie Fuller with Babe Hair Extensions, and today we're going to look at some of the perceptions of pink that we have with our blonde hair. So every once in a while we get a call or a complaint or a concern from a stylist or from a customer about the perception of pink or red cast to some of our blonde hair. So we're going to look at some of those things that might be affecting that, some of the variables that we might be able to do to change that and make it better for you. So here we go. Okay, guys, so before we dive any further, let's look at some of the realities of hair. First, let's look at the sourcing. So, our 100% human Remy hair comes from India. And as we know, the majority of people that live in India are a natural level 1 or level 2. And we are taking them to a level 8, 9, or 10 for some of our extension colors. In order to do that, we understand that it takes quite a process to make that happen. We at Babe use a 45-day process in order to keep the quality of the hair intact as we're lifting it. We're exposing a lot of that underlying or contributing pigment, and we also try to put some of that back into the hair to create the colors that we have. Let's also talk about perception. Perception is a big part of this. So, for example, I might perceive something as blue, and somebody else might perceive something as green. And not that I'm right or that you're right, it's just a difference in the way that it appears to us. So, have we ever had a client in our chair that we've just finished a color service on, and I see warmth and they see cool and we can't agree on it? And again, it's not that they're right or that I'm right, it's just a difference in the way that it's perceived. So we have to understand how that plays into our extension consultation. Okay, so back to the conversation at hand, the perception of pink. Let's look at some of our colors specifically. So some of the most common colors that we get complaints about or questions or concerns about would be our strawberry blondes. So number 27 specifically and number 27613. Number 27 is actually named strawberry blonde. Our 27613 is light blonde with strawberry. So when we think of strawberry blonde, we do think of a reddish or a pinkish undertone. Now, there are some things or some variables that might make that appear more pink or more red depending on certain factors. So some of those different things that we might look at would be the client's skin tone, their clothing that they might be wearing, the lighting in the salon, the hair that we are putting it into, as well as the method that we're using, and also the amount of hair that we're installing. So let's give you some examples. So first of all, let's look at skin tones. If somebody has a very light skin tone versus a very dark skin tone, or an ash skin tone versus a warm skin tone, that's going to make that pink or that color stand out differently, either be more intense or more muted. Clothing would have the same effect. So if somebody's wearing a white shirt one day and somebody's wearing a black shirt the next and a pink shirt the next, then depending from day to day, that can also affect the way that that color looks. The lighting when we're putting it in and when they're wearing it afterwards. So when we install it in a salon, most salons have some form of natural lighting, or hopefully some form of natural lighting that's coming in through windows and doors and those kinds of things. And so it makes it look one way, and then when somebody goes outside, it may look totally completely different, or at home in their bathroom or at work. All of the lighting that is different from one place to another is going to make that look completely different. Then if we talk about the hair that it's being put on and also the method that we're using. So I'm going to demonstrate in just a minute, but depending on whether we're using the fusion method, whether we're using the I-tip method, or whether we are using the tape-in method, each one looks just a little bit different because of how that hair is dispersed within that section of extension. Also the hair that we're putting it into, if somebody has a more cool based blonde and we put this next to it, it's going to look different than if they have a warmer based blonde and we put it next to it. And then of course the amount of hair that we're installing. Obviously the more hair that we put into somebody, the more bags of hair that we put into somebody's head, the more of that color we get in there, the perception is going to be different as well. So let's bring in a couple of models and I'll show you what we are talking about. So this is my model Savannah. And first we want to show how matching the color of the extension is really important. So first of all, when we put the 27613 up to Savannah's hair, you can see that the extension color that we have here matches almost perfectly with these undertones or these lowlights that she has in her hair. So she's going to be a great example of somebody that it matches perfectly on. Okay, so I'm going to have her turn around just a little bit. And I just want to show how when it's put into the hair, and you're choosing the right person to put it into, how it matches really well. So We're gonna lift some of her hair over it here so that we can blend it in and kind of mix it up into it. Get a good view of it here. Okay, so if we look at that in Savannah's hair, you can see that it matches almost perfectly. The highlight and the low light are really, really similar to what she already has in her hair, so we don't get a perception of pink in her hair. It matches with her natural hair color. Okay, so this is our next model, Brescia. So you can see that she has a cooler blonde tone than our last model, Savannah, and she doesn't have quite as many lowlights running through her hair. So we want to show an example of how choosing the wrong extension, possibly, or something that would be close, but not quite exactly right, might bring out some of that pinkish or reddish tone. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have her go ahead and turn around. All right, and so then what we're going to do is we're just going to lift up a little section of her hair here, and we're going to lay that onto it, kind of spread her hair over it, and you can see by putting it against that pale blonde or that paler blonde how it really changes that tone. It looks a lot more pink or a lot more red, and so this might be something that somebody's perceiving as that reddish or pinkish undertone to the hair. Very important that we choose the right shade of blonde, also the right mixture of highlight and low light in the hair with some of these mixed colors. Okay guys, so one last visual on the perception of pink as it relates to the amount of hair that we're putting into the head. So as you can see in just our one strand here, there's not as much darkness or as much of that tonality versus the section over here that we have a lot more hair in there. So when we put a lot more hair into the head, then we're going to get a lot darker or more intense color into the hair. So that could be another reason why somebody would perceive that pinkish or reddish cast in the hair. Really important part, or the most important part of this whole process, is the consultation. So we have to make sure that the client and we are on the same page when it comes to not only the method but the color specifically on what they want to use in their hair. So our swatching is a great tool to use. However, these are only small pieces of hair. So when we have put this up to a client's head and we're looking at it, it's hard sometimes to judge whether or not that's going to actually really match through and throughout the entire head of hair. So another good thing to do is to ask your client what they perceive in the tonality of that hair. After you've looked and you've decided which one matches, then you can say to them, do you see warmth? Do you see coolness? Do you see lightness? Do you see darkness? You know, what are those different things that they see into that hair to make sure that you and they are on the same page? One of the other things that I like to do is once the hair actually arrives, after we order it and it arrives, and before we install it into the client's hair, I'll actually take a bag, open it, and clip some of that hair around their head in various places so that they can see and I can see that it does match and that it looks great and that they're still 100% happy with it. So just some different ideas to maybe help you through the consultation. High-lift blondes are our most loyal customers in the salon. We just have to remember a few things. We have to remember that we see colors differently and that we perceive colors differently. A lot of that can be avoided with a great consultation. We want to make sure that we keep those clients happy and that they return to us. And we want to avoid any and all pinkish or red perceptions in the hair. This is Carrie with Fave. Have a wonderful hair day.